Welcome, everybody. This is week 2 of the 3-day weekends in 3 months coaching program. What I'm doing is I'm sharing with you what I do with my small group coaching clients and my private coaching clients, sharing that process with you and walking you through exactly what you do to help you create the life and the lifestyle you most desire. This is primarily targeted towards entrepreneurs who are already making the income they'd like to be making and are simply finding that they're not having the time to enjoy life outside of work. We're focusing on helping you create more impact for the people you serve, more income, more time to enjoy life, family, friends. These tactics, these tools will work for you whether or not you're an entrepreneur, but the focus is there. If you have any questions along the way, just put them in the chat and I can respond to them accordingly. So what we're going to do this week is focus on growing your most important relationships, specifically your 3 most important relationships. And what I have found is that for the most part, even though there's all sorts of ways we could categorize our relationships, it serves us to get a sense of what is it that we really want, things that are awesome, what are things that are mediocre, and what are things that are maybe not so good or maybe bad. And again, I don't want to get too much into judgment, but still want to be able to have criteria so we decide what we want and we move towards that. And so relationships color our lenses and our worldview, how we see things. We all see the world through our own subjective view. We don't see the world as it really is, but as we perceive it. So maybe you know somebody that says, well, I call it like it is. Well, no, you call it like you see it. You might not see it exactly the way it is, but that person maybe is clear about what they see. So what we think we see impacts what's actually our worldview, and it can be changed by our mood, our confidence, our experiences, our health, our geography, and many other variables, including our relationships. Our relationships significantly affect our worldview, our world, and everything in it. So one of the best ways to improve our world is to improve relationships. You've heard that concept. I imagine that you are very much like the 5 people you spend the most time with, or the 5 biggest influences in your life. And so it's possible for us to measure relationships with numbers. It's not going to be perfectly accurate, but even though it's not perfectly accurate to measure a relationship itself, we can measure or assign numbers to how we feel about that and how we feel they impact us. And so we can evaluate our relationships from our subjective point of view. We can do it without being negative, without being judgmental, without blaming, without falling into the traps that lead us backwards. And yet at the same time, we can quantify what it is. And based on how we feel about it, we can decide if we want more or less. We can do this without being mean or nasty. We can do this without getting judgmental. If you're in any sort of personal growth, one of the things that very often people focus on is being less judgmental. So we're not looking to be judgmental in the sense of these people are bad and I'm so smart and I'm better than them and they're mean. And if they were just nicer, the world would be a better place. We're simply looking at this basic concept like the example at the top here. Maybe you like chocolate ice cream, but you don't like vanilla. Or you like vanilla, but you don't like chocolate, or whatever it might be. We're just looking to see what works for you and knowing that you can choose what you want for you and what's not for you without getting caught up in making anybody wrong, bad talking anybody, or going down a negative spiral, but you can still be very clear about what you're aiming for. And so I like to look at it in a real simple way. I like to say there's either awesome relationships, mediocre relationships, or bad relationships. I know there's many more lenses than that, but it helps us get clear. And so first thing I invite you to consider is, how do you feel when you're in an awesome relationship? How does that person treat you? Whether it's a business relationship, a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, a friendship, even a business transaction. What does that look like? And in this case specifically, how do you feel versus how do you feel in a mediocre relationship? And how do you feel in a bad relationship? So for some people, this filter alone is enough for them to really say, okay, this is either awesome or mediocre or bad. Think about how you're treated. So if you were explaining this to somebody, you might be able to point to things and say, this person spoke to me in this sort of a way, or this person did these things, and those things were awesome, or they were, they were so-so, or they really didn't feel good at all. What's your energy like? How do you respond energetically? What's your energy level like when you interact with somebody that's in an awesome relationship with you, or a mediocre or a bad relationship? How do they speak to you? Is it nice? Is it friendly? Is it loving? It might still be clear. It can still be very awesome and clear, but it can be loving. Let's say it's a business coach or a sports coach. They can still hold you accountable, or even a parent or a friend, but they can still be nice about it, or they could perhaps be not so nice about it, maybe personal attacks and those sort of things. How do you know? Just in your own words, if you were explaining to somebody, hey, this is how I know this is an awesome relationship. This person looks out for me. They care for me. I know that I could leave my kids with them if I was, going out of town for a weekend or whatever it might be. What's your criteria, and how does that compare to a mediocre or bad relationship? Where do you usually meet these people? It might not always be a common theme, but sometimes people say, well, you know what? I keep meeting people, and this happens certainly a lot in romantic relationships. I keep running into the same person with a different face. Well, I keep showing up at the same places. You're going to run into the same people, perhaps. And then how does your life flow when you're in relationship with a person that is an awesome relationship? In my case, I know I find that things are smooth. In a good way, I almost don't notice them, at least friction wise or anything that's dramatic. I sometimes feel good about it. At the very least, I look forward to the next interaction, or I know I had a good time, versus relationships where, if it's a mediocre relationship, there's that saying, there's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back. You wonder, like, well, why did I even bother? Or a bad relationship where you feel drained. And I really encourage you, if you're in a relationship with a person, an organization, and you feel drained after emotionally, that's something to take a look at. That's very different than if you say, hey, wait, I just, spent 2 hours playing racquetball or, doing some physical exercise and I'm physically tired. That's one thing. But if your energy level is low and it just feels like a drag, it feels very difficult. This is probably something you want to move away from. And as you're listening to this, you might be thinking, wait, what does this have to do with business? This has everything to do with business, because the people who are around you, the ones you receive checks from, the ones you partner with, the ones you employ, the ones you outsource stuff to, all of them are either making this big positive impact and propelling you and your work and your mission and your impact forward. Maybe they're doing nothing for it and they're just wasting your time, or they're possibly pulling you down. And what you'll see towards the end is in the workbook, there are these exercises and the ability to go through these and type them in if you like, or you can just write them in. So what I like to do is appraise relationships, and I look at them through a lens of 10 primary wealth areas. Now, if you've done any sort of personal growth coaching, you might hear different people talk about 10 different areas. Most people don't exactly agree on what those exact 10 wealth areas are, but they're in pretty much in agreement that there are multiple dimensions to life. In my case, it's spirituality and family and romance, friends, health and fun, finance, career, growth, and giving. And so, in any one of these things, I know an absolutely awesome relationship is going to notch all of these things up. A mediocre relationship, nothing's really going to happen. And a bad relationship is going to be something that sort of takes me the other direction. And so, if I were appraising relationships, I could say I'm going to do a +1 anytime I put a plus. If something's good, awesome relationships are +10s. Mediocre relationships on a 1 to 10 scale are 0. My bad relationships are actually a -10s. That's definitely not so good. So here's some examples of how you could use this. I might say, look, I have friends I go drinking with, or I do things that maybe these behaviors aren't quite so great for me. They're fun, they're entertaining. So yes, it helps perhaps with friendship, or maybe it doesn't, depending on how intensely you're drinking. It doesn't really help my health, so it takes me back a step. It's fun, it eats up my finances. So that's, possibly, let's say, a mediocre relationship. An awesome spouse or partner that's supportive helps my spiritual relationship, helps my family, helps my romance, helps all these different areas. Maybe I have an inspiring teacher or mentor and they help many of my areas, maybe not all of them. Maybe they're not involved in my family or romance or friends, but they're still helping in so many areas. A relationship with the divine, if you have a solid relationship with God, the divine, the universe, your understanding of that, that could be very positive. And then any person who's maybe just a drain on your life, they might not be part of your spiritual relationship or part of your family or romantically involved with them. They might not even be a friend. And yet, without them even being in your circle of friends, much less family, there are people that can really pull down your energy significantly. And that's something we want to keep an eye out for. So the goal, of course, is to have really, for the most part, only awesome relationships in your life. And to do that, the first thing I find very helpful is to identify and score your 5 worst relationships. And these can include specific people, types of people, or groups. So you might say, well, I have a business and this sort of client, I see them all the time. They do, it's a certain type of client. It's the client that constantly is, trying to ask me to lower my fees. It's the client that's always complaining. It's the client that always has a problem no matter what, whatever it is. Or it could be a person in your life, or it could be complainers. So it could be a specific person, and you might have a name to it. You might put their initials in case they ever saw your stuff. You might not want them to see it. Totally up to you. But identify these, and you might say, wait, aren't we kind of being negative here? Aren't we kind of putting down people? No, we're not saying they're wrong. This is really be clear. Means it's a mismatch. That does not mean these are bad people or evil people or mean people or that they're even wrong. It might just mean that they're not good relationships for where you are and where you're looking to go. So a very common theme you might see with people, let's say, who are trying to change behaviors. A person, let's say, who's trying to stop smoking or drinking or any sort of addiction. They might stop hanging out in the places where they used to do those things. And sometimes that can be really intense. You might say, well, wait, yes, if that person was doing hard drugs and it was really tearing up their life, it would make sense they don't hang out with those people. And yet another person might say, well, no, actually, there's a group of friends that I would go bowling with. And that was a pretty healthy activity, but I'd be smoking like a chimney the whole time. And all my friends smoke and all of them drink. And I'm trying to stop smoking and drinking. So going bowling with them is difficult. So again, maybe that's mediocre, maybe it's worse. So just to be clear, it doesn't mean the person's wrong. It doesn't mean you're better than them or you think you're better than them. It's just getting clear about what's best for you. Mediocre relationships, similar concept. What are relationships that you're involved in that maybe the relationship is just kind of a waste of your time? And again, this does not mean the person is a waste of time. It doesn't mean they're a waste of oxygen. It doesn't mean they should never have been born. It's not an insult to the person. It's, hey, I'm trying to go in this certain direction in life. This relationship isn't helping me. It's not fun. It's not nurturing. It's not enjoyable. It's just, I might be better off just literally resting. I might be better off, in other words, it's not toxic. It's not bad. But at the end of the day, maybe it's boring. Maybe it's repetitive. Maybe I'm just kind of stuck in a rut and I'd be better somewhere else. Of course, from a business standpoint, this might be the type of client that you need to outgrow. Whereas the worst relationship would be the clients that you just know, oh, I can't stand those clients. I need to get rid of them. This might be the person that you could say, well, wait, I could still be working with this person 30 years from now. They'd never go away. But would you be living your mission? Would you be impacting people? Would you be doing great work? No. So again, if you cannot afford to do that financially, you might say, wait, at this moment, I need this mediocre relationship because it's, relationally, it's mediocre situation, but financially, it's still good. But something to keep an eye on. And then your best relationship. Let's look at those. What do those look like? And how can we start, noticing the people that remind you of and look like and talk like and act like these sort of people and these sort of groups, so you can have more of these relationships, unless it's your wife or your husband, in case one's good. And then your highest investment relationships. So you might have said, Wade, there's still a couple of relationships I have that I invest a lot of time in, but I haven't yet identified them. What are those? And in case I hadn't mentioned already, these relationships can also include God, divine, universe, whatever your understanding is of that. I'm not trying to sell that, but I know for some people, I happen to be one of them. That's a big relationship in my life. And when I'm in, for me, that would be in the best relationships category. And when my life is not going as well, it's because I haven't connected with that relationship as much. So the relationship's there, but I haven't invested time in it, because we'd say, okay, there's these relationships, but are we even investing time in them? Where is our time and efforts and energies going? And so to keep things really simple, what we're going to look to do is free up time for your 3 most important positive relationships by dropping or reducing your 3 worst. And so there's a part to the worksheet, again, the written version or the Excel version or the spreadsheet version, where you put the name of the person, the score that you put on it, like, it's a +10 or it's a -7. In this case, these would be -1, so probably these are lower scores. How many hours per month are you investing in this relationship? How many hours do you want to be investing? And what's that change you need to make, and by when? And in this case, what we're doing is we're making room. We're basically first freeing up some time And then we're saying, if I can free up some time, now I have room for these other types of relationships. And maybe I know exactly who these people are. Maybe I don't yet know who they are. From a business standpoint, it might be I'm looking to get rid of the customers that don't value my work, and I'm looking for customers that really do value. And the customers that value me invest in these coaching programs I have, or these products I have, or these processes, or they'll have these conversations. So I might not know where or who that person is yet. And you could even do this as, one group of these as personal relationships, one is professional. But again, what's the change you want to make in this, and what's your target date? So it can be very simple, where you basically start saying, I'm going to invest less time in the relationships that are less powerful for me, more time in the better relationships. And that's just the direction I'm going to move. And so if you look at the program checklist, if you've downloaded that, you'll see that in week 2, this is really what we've been doing. We've been going through here in the Excel and looking at all these different areas, and you can fill these in. They look just like what we just looked at there. And then the milestone for this week is to start work on time, but not early every day that you're working. So last week we were looking to stop work on time. And if we do that, and then now we start work on time, now we're really putting good, healthy boundaries on the beginning and the end of our workday. Even if we're still working 5 days or 6 days or whatever it is per week, we're starting to tighten things and say, okay, this is when I'm going to work. This is when I'm not going to work. This is when I'm going to have time with family, with loved ones, with relaxation. This is when I'm going to focus on serving, and I'm going to hustle and all those different things. So the task really is to score your worst relationships, score the mediocre ones, score your best ones, score the highest investment ones, and then create and start implementing your relationship drop and add plan. And then if you want, report your progress in the comment section. So I hope you find this helpful. This will help you move in the direction of going closer and closer to creating a 3-day weekend type lifestyle. And so if you want, again, you can download the worksheets and the workbooks. If you'd like some other resources, there is the 3-Day Weekend Entrepreneur's Book of Wisdom. It's a really short book. It's also an audiobook, so you can listen to either. They're both free, or you can read them, and it just takes you through the highlights, sort of the big picture of these 12 steps in the 3-day weekends in 3 months, and gives you some very tight and simple wisdom on them. Sometimes for people, just hearing the steps and the big picture helps them get those results. So again, that's the 3-Day Week Entrepreneur's Book of Wisdom. You also can check out the game plan. There's an online course, or create a strategy call with me by scheduling that, where we'd look at the game plan for you to create your 3-day weekend lifestyle. And then finally, there is our 3-day weekends in 3 months, the actual coaching program, where it's small group coaching. So it's the same content we're doing here. Go through this and help you implement this. So I hope this serves you. If you have any questions on any of the work whatsoever, please let me know. As always, I look forward to helping you impact more people and make more money in less time. Do what you do best so you can fully enjoy your family, your friends, your freedom, and your life. Please let me know what I can do to serve you. I look forward to helping you create the life and the lifestyle you most desire. Thanks for listening.